A surprising development coming from one of the president's most important bases of support. The prominent evangelical magazine Christianity Today is calling for President Trump to be removed from office. It is part of this brand new editorial that says, in part, whether Mr. Trump should be removed from office by the Senate or by popular vote next election, that is a matter of prudential judgment. That he should be removed, we believe, is not a matter of partisan loyalties, but loyalty to the creator of the Ten Commandments. Joining me now is Mark Galli, the editor-in-chief of Christianity Today, who wrote this editorial. And Mark, I want to tell you, the president just weighed in on Twitter, and I will read you that response in just a moment. First, though, let me read a section I just read that section for you, where you laid out why this is important. And you say it's not a matter of politics, it's a matter of faith. Why?
Well, because there are times, of course, when there are issues that transcend politics. So to me, this is one of them. I mean, I grant that the Democrats have been partisan in their efforts to remove the president, and at times I think have been unfair. There's no question about that. But in this particular instance, the facts that arose in the impeachment hearings rise above that partisan level. And one of the things I'm trying to say in the editorial is, this is reality. No matter how it came about or the motives that helped it come about, this is the world we live in, this is the president we have, and we need to deal with that honestly.
As you take a step beyond the politics here, and you say his actions are flat out immoral.
Well, yeah, I don't think that's a particularly unusual or surprising insight. I mean, people have been saying that for some time. The question is, when does his behavior, which is described as immoral accurately, rise to the level where he's no longer fit to serve office? And to me, we cross that line with the impeachment hearings.
Let me read you now what the president just wrote about you in your magazine. He says, a far-left magazine, or very progressive, as some would call it, which has been doing poorly and hasn't been involved with the late Billy Graham family for many years, Christianity Today, knows nothing about reading a perfect transcript of a routine phone call and would rather have a radical left non-believer who wants to take your religion and your guns than Donald Trump as your president. No president has done more for the evangelical community, and it's not even close. You'll not get anything from those Dems on stage. And then he goes on to say, I won't be reading E.T. again. I don't know whether he means Entertainment Tonight or Extraterrestrials. Your magazine is Christianity Today, which is known as CT. Your reaction?
Correct. Yeah. Well, I suppose I can be somewhat complimented that the president thought it was worth commenting on. Naturally, I disagree with him on about 7 or 8 different levels. His characterization of us as being far left is far from accurate. We consider ourselves, and most people consider us, a pretty centrist magazine in the evangelical world. We're certainly not far right, and I suppose anyone who's not far right, he would consider far left, and there's a right to say that, but it's factually inaccurate that we're far left. We're pretty centrist. We rarely comment on politics unless we feel it rises to the level of some national or concern that is really important, and that this would be a case. We wrote editorials about Clinton during his impeachment process. We wrote editorials about Nixon during his. This struck me as rising to that level, and it needed comment.
And again, as he pointed out, the magazine was founded by the late Reverend Billy Graham, which really seems to bother him that you're making these comments now. So he's trying to create distance between the Grahams and you. I was struck by another aspect of your editorial. Let me just read this. You say, to the many evangelicals that continue to support Mr. Trump in spite of his blackened moral record, we might say this: remember who you are and whom you serve. Consider how your justification of Mr. Trump influences your witness to your Lord and Savior. Consider what an unbelieving world will say if you continue to brush off Mr. Trump's immoral words and behavior in the cause of political expediency. To me, you were saying here, this isn't just about President Trump. This is about you. Why do you think it was important to say that?
Well, it's because as a Christian, I like to think of myself as a person who has given my ultimate loyalty to Jesus Christ and the gospel he's called us to proclaim. So when Christians of any stripe support a cause that strikes me as manifestly immoral, it does damage to the cause that I've given my life to. So I think that's one part of the equation that all Christians, especially my brothers and sisters in the evangelical world, need to think about more seriously and more deeply.
He does have an enormous base of support among particularly the white evangelical community. Do you really see that changing?
Oh, no. I mean, I don't have any imaginations that my editorial is going to shift their views on this matter. I mean, the fact of the matter is Christianity today is not read by the people on the Christians on the far right, by evangelicals on the far right. So they're going to be as dismissive of the magazine as President Trump has shown to be. So, no, I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe, you know, a few individuals. It's mostly an opportunity for Christianity today to, and I'm speaking for Christianity today. I mean, it's my editorial. I'm the editor-in-chief. I got permission, or not permission, but sign off from the CEO, and got edited by other people. But it is my considered opinion that this is something we need, as a movement, need to think about, pray about at this time in our life.
During the final arguments on impeachment, we did hear from some Republican members on the House floor who seemed to be comparing the President of the United States to Jesus Christ. Listen to this.
When Jesus was falsely accused of treason, Pontius Pilate gave Jesus the opportunity to face his accusers. During that sham trial, Pontius Pilate afforded more rights to Jesus than the Democrats have afforded this president in this process.
You know, I have to say, it's not the first time we've heard comparisons like this. What do you make of that?
Well, that's just part of the political theater in America. I mean, I don't take it all that seriously. I'm not quite sure he was equating President Trump with Jesus Christ. He was trying to equate, he was using that as an example of what he considers to be an unjust trial. I take such political rhetoric with a grain of salt, and I'm not going to hold him to the fact that he actually thinks Donald Trump is the equivalent of Jesus Christ. That I think upon questioning, he would think that's absurd.
You're stepping down from Christianity Today very soon. I just wonder what you want your ultimate legacy to be with this editorial as you step aside.
I guess if I have any control over my legacy or any wish for it, it would be that Christianity Today, when the opportunity presented itself to speak the truth clearly and charitably, we did it. We didn't shirk our duty, and we did what we were called to do. So I'm hoping that that will be our legacy, or my legacy.
Mark Galli, it's nice to have you on this morning. Very interesting to get your perspective. Thank you for being here and in real time hearing the response from the President of the United States to the stand that you've taken.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Allison?
Really interesting conversation, and we will continue to have that conversation over the next hour and a half, because that was very unusual what he did in that editorial.